Dice, yeah, ay, ay.
Meet Logan, the strong minded little elephant who learns that bravery isn't about being fearless, it's about believing in yourself even when you're scared. In this beautifully illustrated story, friends follow Logan through a colorful jungle as he learns to calm his worries, take deep breaths, and remind himself, I am strong, I am safe, I can do this. It's a story that helps kids, and maybe a few grown ups too, find courage, mindfulness, and strength in their hearts. Logan, the strong minded little elephant, by me, Oscar Luna. Available now at all major retailers and my publisher's bookstore, Milton and Hugo. Because it's up to every parent to show that their child deserves to know that strength starts from within. What happens when the belief you were handed as a child becomes a prison you carry into adulthood? Today's guest, Angie Hawkins, grew up in a home where love was quiet, distant, and always out of reach. And as a little girl, she internalized one belief: I don't deserve to be loved. That belief became the engine of a lifetime spent overachieving, chasing approval, and drowning in the rat race of corporate America. But 5 years ago, her entire world opened up. After reaching emotional rock bottom and attempting to end her life, Angie woke up in a place she never expected. A place where she had to face her pain, her panic attacks, her fear of being seen, and the truth she run from her whole life, that she was worthy of more. In this raw conversation, Angie walks us through that transformation. From the suffocating chest tightening panic she once mistook for a heart attack, to moving across the country, skydiving, and doing Navy style jumps just to prove she could feel fear and do it anyway. And then she takes us even deeper into boundaries, people pleasing, the glow method, and the radical act of reclaiming the inner light we were all born with but slowly lose to the world around us. If you've ever lost yourself trying to be everything for everyone, if you've ever felt unworthy, unseen, or stuck inside a version of yourself that doesn't fit anymore, Angie's story will challenge you, comfort you, and maybe even change you. Welcome to another episode of FYI I Am Damaged, where the healed, healing, and others share their wisdom. Angie, can you tell us about who you were before your turning point? What was your world like before you hit emotional rock bottom?
Well, it starts when I was a little girl. I was raised in a home. The most simple way to put it is that both of my parents were very emotionally unavailable. And as an adult, I understand what that means. But as a child, you really don't have the tools to understand that kind of situation. So the way I interpreted it was that I didn't deserve to be loved. So, as I'm sure you're probably aware, your beliefs dictate your behaviors, and then that dictates what you experience in your life. So, I struggled a lot for most of my life because I was always chasing and performing for love and approval. And I was always, like in school, I was the overachiever. I needed to get straight A's. And if I didn't get straight A's, I would have an emotional breakdown. And then that carried over into the workplace because I worked in corporate America for a long time, and it's like that. Like you can absolutely get caught up in the rat race of corporate America and like the overachieving cycle there. But external fulfillment is never enough. So it was like I was just living in this. I guess my whole life felt like a rat race, and I just felt perpetually unhappy and unfulfilled, yet I didn't really know what to do about it. And even if there was a way out, I honestly didn't even feel worthy of feeling happy and fulfilled. So it was just this state of being that was all fueled by that inner belief.
Okay. 5 years ago, a suicide attempt cracked your life wide open and began your transformation. What did reaching that lowest point teach you about yourself and your relationship with pain?
Well, because how I got to that point is like life had been building up to the point where I was telling myself I couldn't take it anymore. And I think we all have those moments, but like layered on top of that feeling was just sheer hopelessness because I felt like nothing had been going well. nothing would ever be going well again. And it's such a dangerous place to be. But what it taught me about pain is that the story I used to tell myself about emotional pain was that I couldn't handle it. So anytime I was anxious or in those dark feelings, I would have like a panic attack on top of what I was already feeling because I felt like I couldn't handle it and everything was overwhelming me and controlling me. But the truth is, like, for example, I've learned to feel safe in my body while feeling really heavy emotions, and that totally changed my life because the feelings are just temporary and I can trust myself to feel safe while I'm moving through those emotions. And so I don't get in that state where everything just feels hopeless and overwhelming anymore.
Were they, how severe were like the panic attacks or what you were dealing with? I know a lot of people, if they felt that for the first time, and don't even know what a panic attack is, like how would you describe that?
Yeah, well, first of all, I actually think panic attacks and anxiety attacks are different because this came out on another podcast. I don't know what the difference is, and I feel like I use them interchangeably. So I'll just say what I describe or what I
Yeah, give us your
experience.
point of view. That's
Yeah.
absolutely okay.
But like for me, it's just like this feeling. Well, first of all, like the physical sensations, it actually feels like I'm having a heart attack because my chest is just so tight and I can't breathe. And then there's just kind of this impending doom because again, like if I feel like I'm having a heart attack, then I might die soon, or you know what I mean? It's like these spiraling thoughts of just all the worst case scenarios, but like it's on top of this physical sensation of like my chest is just squeezing like a vice.
You moved from Chicago to Hawaii and even did dairy things like skydiving and like Navy SEAL style jumps, yet described that the courage to be truly seen as even more terrifying.
Yes.
What does being seen mean to you, and why do you think it's so hard for people?
I think everyone struggles with this to some extent. This has been my main pain point my entire life because I grew up in a very critical environment. So for me, I was like, oh, if I don't allow myself to be seen, then I can't be criticized, which of course was not true, but it did minimize it to some extent. So not allowing myself to be seen was a valid survival strategy for a while. But again, then that like carried into my adulthood. It felt very vulnerable for people to see me who I really was, especially like being a people pleaser. You know, as a people pleaser, you conform to what other people want you to be. So you're not even showing up as your true self anyway. And so healing from all of that, I had to learn how to show up as myself. And it's scary because other people may not like you or they may criticize you. But again, when you become comfortable feeling your feelings, you know, my response to all of it is that's okay because there are people who don't like me, there are people who criticize me. And those are just not my people. I'm not the person for them, and that's okay. But I say like that's usually my tagline when I'm on podcasts and stuff because, you know, I used to think that courageousness was the absence of fear, but the truth is there's a lot of courageous people who do scary things that are still scared while they're doing it. The difference is they don't let that fear cause inaction. They still do the things while feeling afraid. So the reason that I've been bungee jumping and skydiving and all those other things, it's basically to prove to myself that I can feel the fear and do it anyway. And that's been so valuable in my day to day life. So if I'm speaking or doing something where I'm feeling the fear of allowing myself to be seen, I can just tell myself, well, I've been bungee jumping, so this really isn't as scary as bungee jumping.
Mhm. So it's chasing that kind of that rush and everything. So what would you tell somebody to not chase the rush of approval from someone?
Yeah, and honestly, it's super hard because I'm not gonna lie, even though for the most part I really don't care what other people think of me, I still find myself like every once in a while like caring or searching for that hit. The first step is awareness, but also just for me what really helped was whenever I was questioning like what do they think of me, what you know all the things that come up, it's like what do I think of myself, am I living in integrity, if I am I happy with the person who I am, you know, I have Like, I actually had to come up with a list of value statements for the things, like, these are the things I value in my life. And if I'm living by these values, then I am in integrity. So as long as I'm living in integrity, I really don't care what other people think, because yeah, someone can criticize you, but it's like, if you're living in integrity, like, what is there really to criticize except something petty? And if it's petty, then who cares? It's a process, but it changes your whole life, because it's such a prison to be constantly pulled outward by all these external opinions, because everyone has an opinion of what you should be doing and what's best for you, but only you know what's best for you.
And I believe there's the other side of the coin is other people, excuse me, other people chase that hit of pulling people down. And
Yeah, that's a whole thing. Yeah.
you describe your memoir, Running in Slippers, as a raw account of dropping social masks and finding resilience. What inspired you to share your story so openly?
The original idea came in 2017. My boyfriend broke up with me, and then shortly thereafter, my dad passed away. And we live in a just get over it society. So after a few months, people just expected me to be fine. They stopped asking me how I was doing. If I still talked about being sad about my dad dying, the reaction I would get would be along the lines of like, what's wrong with you? Why are you still sad? And, and my dad died. So why wouldn't I still be sad, over two
Yeah,
months later?
that's
So
weird.
it
Well,
was
to me.
very weird. It just felt surreal, because it's like I was grieving, but I didn't feel like I could show it. And then I went on, Instagram, and everyone's posting all these happy, fun pictures. And then even in real life, because if you ask someone how they're doing, everyone puts on their happy face and pretends everything's fine. And I would just have these moments where it's like, I can't be the only one who feels this way. And so I had this idea to write a book. I was like, oh, I want to write like a really vulnerable memoir that talks about like the real shitty things that happen in life. Because I was like, I think that would be really relatable. But at that time, I wasn't courageous enough to put it out, because I loved the idea, but the thought of actually putting myself out there like that was terrifying. So it took me until like hitting rock bottom, because I was like, because it just resurfaced. I was like, other people have to be going through this. And at that point, the desire became so strong. I was like, I want to connect with other people who want to be real about what's going on in life.
I agree with that because after a certain life event that happened in my life, I really adopted that showing your strength or earning your strength through vulnerability. And I find I connect more with people with just being truthful and just
Yeah,
letting them know, say, hey, this, that, and just being very real to the point. They look at you and they be like, why are you saying that? And why are that? Well, I said, this is my life. This is what I'm going through. I'm not trying to be a wet blanket, but I have a different view on it. It's not all downhill from here, but I'm living my life. I'm feeling this temporary pain, and this is what people go through. This is what men go through.
yeah,
And, it's really rough on men who, lead with their heart that always gets battered and yet they can't speak on it. Like,
yeah,
why? And it transcends just men, but with the society we live in, it's you have to be more honest than you are because you can't live by a standard that not everybody can keep up with. It's
yeah,
impossible. It's
yeah.
impossible. Your journey centers on moving from self loathing to radical self love. What were some key things you've done or realized that help you begin healing from the inside out?
Well, one of the main things, well, the first thing is, I had tried traditional therapy and other healing modalities before my rock bottom, and they obviously weren't working. So I decided that I wanted to invest in myself and get help the right way. So I hired a coach, and that was so valuable to me, because he actually was teaching me things that I could implement in my day to day life. So, for example, I had zero self respect, but he taught me boundaries, not only setting them, but enforcing them. And then over time, by developing the actual habit of having strong boundaries, that changed my belief to realize like I do deserve to be respected. And then it became, because that was my core belief, like then it just became an automatic behavior. So he really worked on teaching me like how to show up in the world, to love and respect myself, which ultimately changed my beliefs.
And speaking of coaches, what is for those who haven't had a coach, a life coach, or and want to explore that option, how would you vet someone like that?
So this particular person, I had met him before at a healing intensive. So when I knew I needed a coach, I just reached out to him. But I highly recommend, because most coaches offer a free, most people call it a discovery call, and I offer that too. I call it a free Find Your Glow session. And mine's actually 60 minutes. We'll work on whatever you're struggling with. And then at the end, and this is how I handle mine, I give recommendations for going forward, because most people, because it is such a long call, are able to have a breakthrough, because we want to figure out what that, because it usually, all of your issues in life are usually like driven by one core belief. So the goal is to figure out what that belief is, and then you can come up with a game plan for going forward. But all coaches are different. All coaches have different methods and obviously personalities. So, like what I do, I give recommendations for going forward. So, if it's not a good fit for my program, I know other coaches and have other resources. But my point is, I definitely recommend having a conversation with that coach, because then you can get a feel for like if you were to buy a 3 or 6 month package and having weekly calls or bi-weekly calls, like that will give you an impression of what that actually looks like, or if that person matches your style, because it works both ways, because I want to make sure someone is a good fit for my program, but they need to make sure that I'm the person for them.
Absolutely. And speaking of Glow Method, can you walk us through the Glow Method and how it helps women shift from chasing love and external approval to radiating confidence from within?
Yes. Well, actually, my current program, it's called Shine from the Inside. And that whole concept is based on the fact that we're all born with a light inside of us. Because when you see little kids, they're like running around and screaming, and their clothes are dirty, and they don't give a shit what anyone thinks. But then you go about life, and like there's society, your family, etc., is like telling you what you should do, what you should not do, and it slowly starts dimming your light, and you just become dissociated from who you really are. So the glow method, it's an acronym. G stands for go back to your childhood, because what I was just saying, usually how we're showing up is you can trace it back to a limiting belief, and all of our beliefs were developed in our formative years, whether it was child or teenager. Usually it's a child. So to really get to the root of the problem, instead of putting band-aids on it, you have to go back to your childhood and figure out what the root of the problem is, and then you can figure out the long-term solution from there. And then L stands for light yourself up. This is something I actually, even though it's not going in order of the acronym, I implement this part immediately, because again, like we get disconnected from our light as children. So you can start rekindling that immediately by doing, like my rule for life is to do at least one thing a day that brings you joy, just to like keep kindling that light inside of you. And then O is overcoming external validation, which is like the whole core of the program, because the whole point is to have that internal sourced validation, so that you're not constantly, getting pulled in different directions by external validation. And then W stands for welcome back home, because I feel like a lot of self-help type stuff has a message of you need to fix yourself or change something about yourself. But again, it's really back to coming home to who you are, because that light is who you are, and you've just been molded by everyone else's expectations.
No, thank you for laying that out for us. Many of your clients have tried therapy, self help books, explored spirituality, yet still feel something's missing. What is the missing piece that you work to address?
Well, the missing piece I work to address is, again, like not putting band-aids on it, because a lot of like spiritual modalities, you feel good in the moment, but it's really not addressing what the core issue is. With self-help books, they give you a ton of information, but they don't really give a lot of information on how to practically implement this in your day-to-day life. So coaching gives you that opportunity to like to analyze and actually implement, like how to develop it in your day-to-day life. And like versus therapy, there are good therapists, but my experience with therapy was just talk therapy. So you would just have a session. It may feel good in the moment. The information may make sense in the moment. But again, I would leave and it's like, well, now what do I do? And then I would it was like chasing external validation because I would wait for the next appointment to like feel good or be able to talk about it again. But with coaching, it's like teaching someone how to fish and like these are the tools to implement in your day-to-day life. And then the client gets to practice them. And it's also rewarding because then you can see your behavior change over time.
So that's one thing that I expressed to my therapist. I said, if we're not going to find ways that I can help myself get out from feeling, because if we're only seeing each other once a week, and I didn't want to feel that, I didn't want to
Yeah.
feel that. You feel that walking on a cloud a day or two, and then after
Yeah.
that, you just take a dive. And I said, we're getting to know each other. Can you help me develop some protocols or what have you so that I can do either day by day with how I'm feeling and what I'm going through? Because if you're not going to help me with that and you're just going to be a verbal dumpster for me, I don't want it. I
Yeah.
don't want it. And they were like, no, we can develop some things if that's the route you want to take. I still need to know about you. You need
Yeah.
to let me know what you're going through, and then we can develop some models and see what works best for you. I said, all right, let's give it a shot. And pardon me. And that's a lot of things I think people should take into account. And like how you said, is you figure out what's the best thing for you.
Yeah.
I know people that love getting the coach route, others love therapy, and but then I get curious. I'm like, why? What do you do? Do you
Yeah.
want somebody just to talk to? Do you want somebody to tell you what to do? And do you ever encounter somebody who wants that hidden sense of, tell me what to do, please, tell me, tell me, tell me. Do you recognize that and say, hey, look, no, this has to stop?
Yeah, but honestly, those are the kind of people who initially come to me though, because again, a lot of therapy is just talk therapy. So, which again is helpful in the moment, but you don't really get instruction on like what to actually do. So I do have people come to me and they want me to tell them what to do. A huge part of my program is learning to tap into your intuition because we're all again, we're born with intuition. We all have it. We become disconnected from it, but that's what everyone should ultimately be listening to. So I teach my clients on how to listen to their own intuition. And I can give advice, I can give my opinion or recommendation, but I would never tell someone what they should be doing. And luckily, I haven't had anyone who's been like over time, like extremely needy or reliant on my advice. Most people do develop their intuition enough and start trusting that. So I haven't seen it where it's like over an extended period of time, someone just wants me to tell them what to do. But I could see someone struggling with that.
Okay. And going into that, like, how do you guide women to set boundaries without guilt? And why is that such a challenge for so many?
Because we were conditioned to like be nice and make other people comfortable. And this is what I've started telling people because I used to say, I'm going to teach you how to set boundaries without guilt. But the truth is, even I feel guilty sometimes setting a boundary. So it's not about not feeling that feeling. It's about trusting that you can feel safe in your body while feeling that feeling and trusting that you're doing what's right for you. So the guilt does decrease over time. So it's not always as intense and overwhelming, but the goal is not to get rid of it completely. The goal is to be confident enough to set and enforce the boundary and trust yourself that if the guilt comes up that you can handle it and not let that sway any of your decisions about the boundary.
That's awesome because every boundaries are really hard for some people to set because they don't.
Yeah.
I don't want to. I don't want you to get mad at me. I don't want you
Yeah.
to think a certain way about me. And people really need those boundaries.
Yeah, and the truth is, I've realized most people respect you more once you start setting healthy boundaries. But it seems counterintuitive, right?
Yeah, because then it's like, wait, I'm telling them what to do, and then and they were the one always being told to what to do, and then wait, now I'm that person, and no, I shouldn't do that, and I don't
Yeah.
want. That's how I don't want to be treated. But boundaries are boundaries. You really need to have them set between people, because next thing you know, something else could come out of it. And
Exactly. Yeah, then that's just it. Like you got to nip it in the bud right away because it's just going to get worse if you avoid it.
you talk about reclaiming one's inner light and joy, even after deep trauma. What are some daily practices or mindset shifts you use to anchor this process?
So this is going back to what I was saying earlier. This is my rule for life, and this is what I recommend to anyone, not just my clients. But do at least one thing a day that brings you joy. And a lot of people, their excuse is, well, like, I don't have time. But my counter to that is, for example, my one thing a day is usually surfing, which can be time consuming. But if I don't have time to surf, I also like to dance. And most songs these days are like, what, 3 minutes long? So it's like, even if you just put on one song and dance, that's only 3 minutes. That's not going to take away from anything else in your day. But the whole point of this is one, you deserve to feel happy. And number two, it conditions yourself to realize that you deserve that and you should feel good. I think a lot of us go through life, we're just like trudging along and working, running errands, like doing all this life stuff. But there is like fun and joy to be had.
Now, do you dance to anything in particular, or would whatever just
Well, it just
get your ear?
depends. Actually, what I like to do is just kind of go on YouTube and see what it picks for me. Maybe I'll have a song in mind, but I like to be surprised.
Yeah, that keeps the that no, that keeps you on your toes. That's good. No, that's a good
Yeah.
idea because some people would just navigate to maybe some salsa or hip hop or whatever, and then you're like
But if that's
roulette.
what you like, yeah, go for it. And honestly, I recommend dancing for everyone because just like moving your body it's so healthy.
Tell me about the surfing. Of course, I'm not the surfing type, and I'm on the East Coast. How is that? And do you always, what do you do? You find yourself in the zone, or how does that attribute to you and your mission? I just find it very interesting because, you said you're in Hawaii, right? And
Yeah.
you're probably surfing over some great whites or whatever, and it's like, and to learn that and then to be like, oh wait, these things could be under me, and I don't know. It's just I'm just an East Coast guy, and I want to hear your learning
Well,
lesson from that.
no, I actually appreciate that comment because I'm originally from Chicago. So when I moved here, I did not go in the ocean at all because I'm like, there's things in there. Like I was a city person. Like I'm not going in the ocean. I'm not sharing the water with whatever's living in there. But this is what happened. COVID, because everything was closed. The beaches were closed, the parks were closed, the hikes were closed, but the ocean was open because the state doesn't have jurisdiction to close the ocean. So I would go on walks, like a legal walk on the sidewalk, but I could see people surfing and I was just so desperate to like be out in nature and be doing something. So that's how I learned how to surf. So when I first started, it was like the desperation to just be outside and do something that wasn't restricted was like overriding any fears about the ocean. But then over time, I just started to become comfortable with the ocean and now I love it. I get in the ocean almost every day. And I have seen sharks. I haven't seen great whites,
Mm.
but I don't know. I'm so comfortable with the ocean. I'm just comfortable with being at one with everything that's already in there. So, like, because the two times that I've seen a shark, it didn't even scare me. It's just like, oh, there's a shark.
Wow, that all right. Hey, whatever floats your surfboard, man. That's great. Moving on. What does it really mean to shine from the inside, and how does that shift a person's relationships and sense of self?
So, what it means to shine on the inside is when you light back up that light that you were born with and just love yourself so much that you do not give a shit what anyone thinks of you. And the really cool thing about that state is that it creates a ripple effect because when you're shining from the inside, people can see that. Like, I have people who will explicitly tell me, like, you're glowing or something like that. But then that inspires other people outside of you to also shine their light. And at the risk of sounding woo woo, it also there's a lot of like fear and anger propaganda and just honestly a lot of shitty stuff going on in the world right now. So you're either contributing to that vibration or you can contribute to raising the vibration of the universe. So shining your light is actually contributing to raising the vibration of the universe. So it's like this whole ripple effect. And it's like spawned from just you being who you were born with and not conforming to any of this outside stuff.
Yeah, I noticed that too. It's like when I'm on my lighter side, everyone is like, oh, oh wow. But then I always have this sort of, with recovering from my traumas and everything, I have a sort of, a sort of, I guess, a vigilant mindset,
Yeah.
and which is something I'm trying to not trying to eliminate from me, but to try and balance because where the world being the way it is, and where I live and the things I've experienced, I said, okay, it's okay to be vigilant, but not be hyper vigilant. Like choose the level and find your
Yeah.
balance.
Because you need to be vigilant, but you don't need it to be interrupting your nervous system all of the time, because then you'll just
Yeah,
drive yourself crazy.
that fight or flight, and then you're always
Yeah,
on fight, and that one guy that walks in the room and just like scanning, 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 like
yeah,
everything's okay. Everything's all right. And if it isn't, then you don't need to be there. You know,
yeah.
your program helps women stop performing for approval or chasing love and instead attract relationships that reflect their true selves. How can someone start to break free from people pleasing today? Is it a balance? Is it mainly mostly women, or just you take all comers and teach them the ways, or
Only worked with women, usually market toward women just because I am more familiar with that experience. I'm not opposed to working with men because honestly, men and women deal with the exact same things. It's just the little nuances to them. So there's obviously men people pleasers as well. Honestly, the first thing I work with people is learning how to say no. And I know that sounds so basic, but think of all of the times in your day or week where you say yes when you really want to say no. So even that, even though it seems small, it's big enough that it gives them the confidence and motivation to keep saying no to stuff they're not aligned to, and then take a bigger step and, because there's obviously a lot harder boundaries than that, but it gives them the confidence and motivation to keep going.
I get it. I was on the starting my podcast journey, I was on the flip side of that and interviewing someone, and before we got started, she was telling me, "Let me just give you some advice." And I was on the flip side of that. She's like, "Be prepared to hear a lot of no's." And I'm like, "But people like to talk. I want to interview people. I have something interesting, and or I think I have something interesting."
Yeah.
And she's like, "So let me break it to you." She's like, I'm doing the same thing you're doing. I interviewed you, you interviewed me." She's like, "Trust me. Be ready for a lot of no's." And then what you said makes me reflect on those people who are at a time and place in their life that they're not afraid to say no. So it gives me that perspective of don't feel a certain way because they're telling you no, and then that makes me think, well, maybe they're at that point in their life to say, you know what, for me it's okay to say no, and he needs to hear that. And now I'm in that position where I have to say no.
Yeah.
I'm like, I get it.
Would you consider yourself, are you good at setting boundaries?
I'm starting
Okay.
to because it's when I didn't, then I realized when I started focusing on putting myself first and never in a bad way,
Yeah.
saying no and telling people, you know what, this isn't in my space, this isn't in my bandwidth, and I can't really do this right now. And not saying no the way I was told growing up. People would tell me no, like, the hell you talk about? No, like, get the hell out of here. It's like, it's how people would treat kids, in that point in time. My no's were more harsher than me knowing how to say no now
Mm,
because, okay, like, no, I don't want to hurt you. How do I condition not condition myself, I practiced on how to tell somebody no and say, look, now's not the right time.
yeah.
Can't do this, I'm doing that, I got a lot of things. I'm hurting myself more by helping you
Yeah.
rather than putting myself first, and we just have to take a pause and all those other things to let somebody know, like, well, he said no, but he didn't really say no, and I just have to wait my time. Like there was a excuse me, there was a woman who I interviewed who was going through a pending divorce. And I could have interviewed her a year ago. And then once I interviewed her, I said, you know what? I'm glad we waited because you weren't in a headspace. You would have did it
Mm,
just to be obligatory, but life got us both busy. And interviewing her a year later, while she's still going through it, but she worked on herself immensely, knockout interview. Like, oh my God, I'm glad we waited, you
yeah.
know. So I'm learning to, and it may sound hokey too, like trust the process, and when it's that time, like don't force it. So all of those things. So what I thought was, people just bypassing and saying it to say it, like those things really do apply. And to understand it and to be in the mix of it, gives me a better outlook on how to deal with people and also coach them. Say, hey, look, why are you rushing it? Why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? I've been in your position. Learn from me, or, you want to, like how the saying goes, a hard head makes a soft ass.
I've never
I
heard
was like,
that.
yeah. So it's like, if you're not going to listen and you're going to keep falling on your behind, okay, that's what's going to happen. If not, listen to me, work on your patience. Otherwise, good luck on your journey because, you're going to need it. Just don't stop.
Well, the reason I asked you if you had good boundaries is because the way you were describing accepting other people's boundaries was really emotionally mature. And for me, I never respected other people's boundaries either. But once I started having strong boundaries myself, then that's how I learned to accept other people's boundaries. But I feel like you're kind of the opposite. You learn to accept other people's boundaries first before you really started
Yeah,
developing your own.
I do a lot of, especially if I want to collaborate with somebody, I do the probing thing first, and I'm not underhanded about it. I'm very straight. Like, look, I want to do this, I want to do that, but what's going on with you? And then I do to others what they have where they're not there yet, and to make them be seen. And once they see that, they're like, wait, you want to listen? You want to hear me? In the retreats I've done, I kind of kickstarted a little thing where, we look at each other and be like, I see you. And then the other person responds, says, good to be seen. And to do that and to acknowledge a person, to know that I'm not asking you about the weather.
Yeah.
I'm asking you about your life. Like what's going on, how you doing, this and that. And, tell me about you. And they're like, you got the time for that? I got all the time in the world. But if we hit a certain time, then, and we can continue it later, but I would love to hear about you. We did something, my wife and I did something called the Possibility Festival. And they had one in Chicago, they were doing one in New York. Had a great friend who invited us, did it out in Central Park. And one of the practices that we did was we stood in a line. And you take 2 minutes to say, this is what I'm doing, and like two other things. So I got in front of this older lady. She was like in her 70s. She had like a kind of, put off face and everything. I'm like, so what's going on? She's like, well, I'm here with my family and, my husband just passed. And I was like, really? I said, well, I'm sorry. And I don't like those default cookie cutter answers, especially like when
Yeah.
you pass, like, my condolences, this and that. I said, I'm sorry that he passed. And how long were you guys together? Oh, like 50 years and so on, something like that, and decades. And then I'm like, tell me about him. Tell me something good about him. Tell me, what he liked, and tell me about your life together. And I was like, I don't want to hear if you got anything pending, this or that or whatever. I said, tell me about him. She started crying. She started crying, and she was like, she's like, I miss him so much. He used to work because since we were in Central Park. She's like, he used to work at on the west side. I think the major broadcasting company was, I think, ABC. So he used to work for ABC. I would meet him for lunch, and we would do that every day. And she's like, I miss him so much. She's like, she had to stop, go get her shades and put them on because she didn't want
Yeah.
her people to see her crying. And she was very thankful for that, because how many people will go out of their way to say, okay, I'm trusting enough to say that my other half passed, but then you want to know about him? Because I
Yeah.
know about I know about not being seen. So
Well,
I love to.
especially with grief, like that's such a special moment because most people, when people are grieving, scares them away and they don't want to talk about it. So, like, you created such a special moment just by having a conversation about it. I love that.
Yeah, and because once I see that, then I'm like, if you got the time, I got the time, tell me what's up. Like, what's going on?
Yeah.
And you don't have to be a superstar doing amazing things. You could just be like, well, I'm just living life, going through this, going through that. And if people would do that more often, they would see so many things in common.
I was
With
just going to say, I think we have way more in common than we think.
Yep. It could be with parenting tips, and when a couple of us guys would get together, we'd talk the same thing. I'd be like, yeah, oh, I'll deal with that with my kids. I deal with that with my wife, or
Yeah.
my other friends and coworkers and things like that. I'm like, well, you're not alone. We see you, and I hope it's good to be seen, and understand that it's like make that connection and don't just keep it surface level, and also but respect somebody's boundaries and know
Yeah.
practice on knowing how to maneuver in a conversation. And I've been doing that more, doing interview after interview after interview, and to speak with somebody, I always get that. I was like, oh, you're a great listener. I'm like, well, I kind of partly do this for a passion, and you know now I'm knowing how to maneuver to it, and people are like, I felt like telling you more. Well, we can. I guess I made a new friend. Let's talk more, and that opens the floodgates in people, and I love it because then they get a sense of, okay, like I'm not stuck in my own box anymore.
Yeah.
So let me see what else is out there, and then I do the same thing. I want them like just the boundary thing. In my own little way, because you would have to judge people on what they're able to handle, what they're able to do, and if they're capable of doing it. Because once that floodgate is open, then it's hard to get it closed again.
Yeah. Agree.
You say, well, maybe, well, you say you're not here to fix people. You say you're not here to fix people, but guide them back to home, to themselves. How do you know when someone has truly come home to their own worth?
Usually you can see it in the way they show up because it's not just happiness, it's a different kind of happiness. You can tell it's coming from within, but also you just see the shift in, because I have a lot of women who come to me about relationships. Either they're in a relationship and they are people pleasing their partner, or they just got out of a relationship and they're fixated on their ex partner. But when you start to see their change from the people outside of themselves to themselves, that's also a really huge sign.
What is one of your more successful cases of coaching where someone has just left the atmosphere?
I feel like I don't know if everyone has left the atmosphere, but like everyone, I see it, at least see the change from being fixated on these things outside of themselves. And then we get to conversations where we're not even talking about anything outside of themselves. And it's like so rewarding and fulfilling because ultimately you shouldn't care. Like, yeah, there's things going on and you can feel a certain way about them, but you don't have to stay in that state and stay fixated on all these external things. The ultimate prize, like be having that internal sense of happiness and joy. And most people get there, but it's through focusing on yourself, focusing on, am I the kind of person like I want to spend the rest of my life with? Am I living in integrity?
That's a fair point because people understand you're the first person that you live with.
Yeah. And that's why most people like can't even stand, because I get a lot of women, I think men are like this too. A lot of, and it's actually sad, there's a lot of people who are in relationships only because they don't want to be alone because they can't stand being alone in their own feelings. But when you love yourself, you can be in your own company and be perfectly content and happy, and you don't have to run away from anything.
Very true. Very true. For anyone listening who feels broken, hopeless, or stuck in self doubt, what's your message to them right now?
My primary message is that you are worthy of living a happy and fulfilling life. Because as I mentioned at the very beginning, I used to live in this state where I didn't even feel worthy of that. Therefore, I didn't think it was even available to me. So I am living proof that, first of all, if you are alive on this earth right now, you are worthy of happiness and fulfillment. But not only that, it is available to you. So if you aren't feeling that way, then reach out and get help because you deserve to feel that way and it is available to you.
And finally, where can listeners find you, your book, and your resources if they want to start continuing their own healing journey?
My website is called runninginslippers.com, which is also the name of my book. There is information about the book. It's available on paperback, Kindle, and audiobook. The audiobook is narrated by me. I know that's important to some people. There's also information on my coaching program. My current coaching program, as I mentioned, is called Shine from the Inside. And I do offer a free 60-minute Find Your Glow call so we can work on whatever you're struggling with in that 60 minutes, which is a great chunk of time. Most people do have breakthroughs. And then at the end, again, my coaching program is not for everyone. So I will give recommendations for going forward. And if it's not a good fit with me, I know other coaches and therapists. We can definitely point you in a direction to get you help.
That's awesome. And you guys listening, take advantage of this. You got it. You got it. And I think you can help a lot of people.
That's what
And
I'm trying to do. Yeah.
stay away from the sharks, though.
Yeah.
So is that oh no, that wasn't a shark
No,
earring.
no,
I
this.
thought it was. I thought it
No.
was a shark too. Okay.
Oh, that would be fierce, though. I should get shark tooth earrings.
There you go. Thank you very much for your time. And it was great speaking with you. And it felt very uplifting with me and with
Thank you.
everything that you have going on. And yeah, I think people would benefit from your coaching sessions.
Well, thank you. Yes, thank you for having me on. I love what you're doing. I love your mission. That's why I reached out to you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. All right. Take care.
Bye.
If you're still here, still listening at the end of our conversation, let this be the moment you pause and breathe. Because what Angie shared today was more than a story. It was a mirror. A mirror showing what happens when a child grows up believing they're unlovable and how that belief can quietly shape every choice, every relationship, and every desperate attempt to earn your worth in a world that never taught you to have any in the first place. But Angie also proved something else. That even when life drags you to your lowest, to panic attacks, overwhelming hopelessness, to a suicide attempt that becomes your turning point, you are not beyond repair. You are not broken. You are not unworthy. Angie's journey back to herself through boundaries, self-respect, the GLOW method, emotional courage, and the willingness to be seen is proof that healing isn't reserved for the lucky or the strong. It is for anyone willing to take the first small step, saying no when you mean no. Choosing joy for 3 minutes a day, or simply trusting that you deserve a life that feels good on the inside, not just on the outside. If you're listening right now feeling lost or convinced that happiness isn't available to you, remember this. If you are alive, you are worthy. And if you're willing to reach out for support, guidance, and your own light, then your transformation has already begun. Until the next time, keep breathing, continue choosing yourself, and never forget your light is still there. It's just waiting to shine. This is FYI I Am Damaged. Meet Logan, the strong-minded little elephant who learns that bravery isn't about being fearless. It's about believing in yourself even when you're scared. In this beautifully illustrated story, friends follow Logan through a colorful jungle as he learns to calm his worries, take deep breaths, and remind himself, I am strong, I am safe, I can do this. It's a story that helps kids, and maybe a few grown-ups too, find courage, mindfulness, and strength in their hearts. Logan, the strong-minded little elephant, by me, Oscar Luna. Available now at all major retailers and my publisher's bookstore, Milton and Hugo. Because it's up to every parent to show that their child deserves to know that strength starts from within.